Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Books and Shit with me, your girl, Charlie Author. Thanks so much for joining what is going to be, as you can see and hear and read on the title, is another author feature. And this week's episode is with the lovely MJ McGriff, M meaning Margaret. I am joined by the wonderful Margaret here. How are you, my love? How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining me today. And in true Charlie fashion, it was very last minute in the sense of I was in the middle of reading Macario's Scepter, which I have. Hold on, I was using it as
Mhm.
a bookmark, which I have here with my little.
Nice.
Sorry, I need to get this the right way around. Which I have my little tabbies on the side, and I knew I wanted to have an author feature, and I was like, oh my God, I'm reading an indie right now. So let me get in touch with Margaret
Awesome.
and see if she's free. So here we are.
Awesome.
So as I always do, I go into one, but I'm going to try and step back and let you go. So the first one is tell me about yourself or tell everyone about yourself, and then we'll
Okay.
see where that leads us, basically. So tell us
All
about you.
right. All right. Awesome. So I currently live in South Florida, originally from New York. I've been writing, gosh, since like third grade, like second or third grade. I
Mm.
had a teacher who was really awesome. She had us illustrate our own books.
Oh, nice.
And then she put them in the library so other people can read them, and I was just hooked after that. So I was
That's awesome.
writing stories and passing them out to my friends, kind of like, I guess, what we call now like a serial, but it was just I wrote something at night and then I would staple it together and then I would pass it out to friends and things like that.
Yeah.
So I've been writing for a really long time. I didn't get professional with it until I had my first daughter. So I have two little girls. One now, she's 9, and my other one is going to be 5 in a couple of weeks. And she
Mm.
keeps reminding me like I wasn't there, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
That age
So
of, yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah. And yeah, like I'm a single mom. I work a full-time job, so I work in marketing during the day.
Mm.
So that's a different kind of creative, writing. And then I write and do my other side businesses afterwards.
Love
Yes.
it. Lots of side quests. I really dig that. Um,
Yes.
no, no, no.
Lots of those, lots of
It
those.
does. So it seems like you're spinning a lot of plates, which is awesome, as a
Yes.
lot of us are doing. As people will know, I've recently become a writer mom, only a month in, not quite 9 years. But I definitely
Mhm.
appreciate the new, different struggles, paths, ways that you have to, be have to think about things and go into things. So that is obviously a fate in itself, which is wonderful, as well as working a full time job. So I do commend you. Um,
Thank
one
you.
one thing I did want to touch on, because after reading Scepter and going on to update my reviews and that kind of thing, it brought up your catalogue, and there's
Yes.
like 3 sci-fi books before this.
Yes.
Tell me about
Yes.
that, because I was just, what is this? I've never seen this before. So yeah, tell us about that.
So I wrote those books, actually my first year as a mom. So when I had my daughter, I was at a place in my life where I was like, I did the whole get a real job, writing is just a hobby thing. And I went to school, got a pre-law degree, got a paralegal degree, but it just was not panning out whatsoever, right?
Yeah,
So I was at a place where I said, if I want my daughter to follow her passion and I want her to do what lights her up, I kind of have to set that example.
example.
So before I did any kind of reading, researching, listening to podcasts, I was like, look, I'm just going to write. So I wrote those 3 books, which was a sci-fi series. I was really into Hunger Games and Maze Runner and Divergent at that time. So that's kind of like the vibe those are on, right?
100%.
Um, and I wrote those 3 books while my first year as a mom, and I wrote them all in like a year and a half.
Oh, lovely.
And then I went back and then got an editor and all of those kind of things. So that was kind of like my first kind of trial run,
Oh gosh, yeah,
um,
yeah. No, I
with
definitely understand.
self-publishing and all of that stuff, right?
No, no, no. It's literally like speaking to myself, because that first venture out was with the Antonides Legacy for me. And not
Mhm.
really understanding about self-publishing or where to start. It was just,
Yeah.
oh, you upload it to Amazon, go. Like,
Yeah.
that's a it. So that's wonderful. But I was really surprised to have seen that. So I'm definitely going to have to dig into, the back catalogue once I've finished. How do you pronounce it? Yeah, the Magian series.
Yes.
So you obviously we touched on it, but what is it about essentially? So the sci-fi one, just to quickly.
So I kind of like what I call like a dystopian kind of sci-fi. So it takes place like we basically trash the Earth and everybody has to go to a new planet. And
Mhm,
this planet was kind of a new Earth. So we have a set of settlers who felt that they needed to recapture what old Earth was.
mhm, mhm.
So you had kind of like a mixing pot of different cities that maybe were half like China and half, European. And just because of that mix of settlers and things, and they really wanted to hold on to their authentic past Earth selves.
Got
And
it.
then you had another group of people who said, past Earth did not work. That's why we are here.
Right.
So let's fast forward into the future, have a more homogeneous society, and just how those two sides kind of clash with each other.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Um, so it follows two best friends. So one works for the New Earth government, and another one is like a rebel,
Yeah.
she has like this whole like rebellion group, but they're
Awesome.
best friends. So
Okay.
how do
I
we
can
like
navigate that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
navigate that? So that was just exploring just my love of just having diverse cultures, having women of color as leads. That's
Mhm.
always been big for me, even in
Okay.
that one.
Yeah.
And just having fun, just exploring. Like the first book was from the heroine's perspective. The second book was who the villain from the first book and her redemption arc. And in
Mhm.
the novella was what happened when they first got here. So I really had like fun. You said
Yeah,
I knew nothing about self-publishing, necessarily craft or anything, but I really just wanted to have fun with
yeah,
those books. And then it was my trial run with cover designers and
yeah.
finding editors and all of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. You know what? I love that you said just about having fun because don't get us wrong, I'm sure you can agree, we loved it,
mhm,
right? You can't really do it
yes,
if you didn't love it. But it's hard. And
yes,
the creative part is easy, quote unquote. You just start
yes,
out your head, you write it, you fix it, whatever. But it's
yes,
hard in terms of finding time, finding energy, finding money, market, all manner of things that are really, really hard. So I love that you've mentioned that, that initial run was just fun. There wasn't the pressure of
yes,
beta readers and arc readers and editors and, oh, is it development edit, is it a copy edit, is it
yes,
who even knows what
yes.
that is?
That
Who
is.
knows what that is? I went straight in, was just like, yeah, I spell checked it on Word, this is good, like,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
so I do love that you've definitely highlighted the fact that that initial outing was just what you wanted it to be, whatever came out.
Right. And I
And
tell a lot of writers, don't worry about the marketing. Don't worry about what edit you need. Write the story first.
yes,
Just
always,
write it out. Especially
always
if it's your first one, just get it done. That
just
in
get it.
itself is a feat, right? That in
Yeah,
itself, you can pat yourself on the back all day. You
all day.
finished it.
No, I
It's
love it.
going to
And I
be a
love,
hot mess.
oh
Yeah,
gosh,
it's going to be a
see,
hot mess.
guys, you know that I say this stuff all the time.
Yes.
Margaret is, she is sweet and
Yeah,
good.
it's a hot mess.
Yeah.
But that's when you come out of your box of your hole and then you get people, you get your writer friends, you
Mhm.
get your editors, and your editor is not just someone who sits far off. I mean, me and my editor will have watch parties and we're on group chat every day and
Yeah,
sending pictures of our kids because she's a new writer mom too, and just having that relationship because they understand you as a whole person, right? And
yeah,
they know where you're strongest, where you're not. So you're able to take that feedback better. But don't worry about the marketing and the newsletters. They try to like put the cart before the horse. I'm like, finish the thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You don't know what the theme is till you're done. A lot of times themes happen by accident. It's like,
Mm,
she crafted this whole thing. I'm like, yeah, that was totally by accident because it was 9 o'clock at night and
yeah,
I was
yeah,
tired and I had to finish the thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
that's what came out, right?
I'm definitely with you on that one. First drafts are literally heart drafts, as people call them, and
Yes.
it's literally just about finishing it. Like, you can perfect something to within an inch of its life, but if it's not finished, what's the point? So at least,
Exactly.
get it down on paper, or computer, as you said.
Mhm.
The other thing that I loved you mentioned, so the fun part as well, but obviously having a diverse cast, having a Black cast, and having a
Yes.
Black female as the center, and just moving away slightly from what I was. Oh, sorry, let me edit this. Moving away slightly from the introduction and finally onto the book. So
Mhm.
there we go, Macario's Scepter, as I've said,
Mhm.
book one. The thing that drew me to it, so I don't particularly remember how we kind of met via Instagram, but you're just here now, it's
Yeah.
great. But I remember seeing the book and seeing pirates, and that was my first thing. It took me a while, I'm so sorry, to get round to it, but I was so invested in reading it because I was just like, I don't really read a lot of pirate books, and I
Mhm.
especially don't read a lot of Black pirate books. So we are 100%
Mhm.
we're reading this book, okay? I've got
Exactly.
the paper one here, and I've got the Secret Library on Kindle, so I'll read that on my phone. But you know
Okay.
me, I have to have matching things, so I'll get the book later. Um,
No worries.
it's wonderful. So my first thing, obviously, you went from sci-fi to
Mhm.
pirate. Why pirate? We'll talk about the book, but why pirate? Where did
Right.
that come from? Where did that blossom?
Okay, so very interesting story, right? So I was on maternity leave with my second daughter. And
Yeah.
at that time, through that pregnancy, I was trying to write that third book in that sci-fi, and it just was not happening. I was just stuck, right?
Yeah.
So I was on maternity leave with her. And when my eldest one was asleep, so I was home with like both babies. I had like a 5-year-old and a newborn.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I had downtime, I actually started watching that show Black Sails. Like, it was on Hulu about that show. And I was like, that would be so cool. But why aren't any female pirate leads?
Yeah.
And then B, there need to be some more Black folks. I mean, we are in the islands, for crying out loud. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not seeing any, right, Black
You're in
people,
the
right?
Caribbean, literally Pirates of the Caribbean, and there's
Right.
what?
No,
No
no.
sense.
Where are they at, right? So I played around with that idea, but I want to say I played around with that idea for a year because, like I said, adjusting to one child, now two. I was married with the first one. I got divorced with the second one. So navigating all of that, I really didn't get down to that story until about a year later. It had been like marinating.
Yeah.
And again, I wanted fun. I was dealing with so much hard shit. Like, let
Yeah.
me just have fun with
Yeah.
pirates. And I love Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm like, so let's have ships and serpents and islands,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
give me an excuse to go to the beach and research because I live in Florida. So the beach is like 5 minutes away. I'm like, I need to write this scene. So I need to go sit on somebody's beach for a little bit and
Yeah.
write the scene,
Yeah.
right? So yeah,
Definitely.
and it just kind of blossomed from there. It just, a lot of the characters were very accidental. It wasn't anything like the treasure hunting nun came out of a very tough edit.
Okay.
That book was a very, very, very tough edit.
You know what? The first one usually is. The first one usually is because it's, even though you've got the story in your head, you know, one of the things I struggle with is what's in my head. I mean, start again. That's the point of writing, but you need to get what's in your head on paper. So you need to
Yes.
understand that not everybody has your vision. So you're writing what you think is obvious or what you think makes sense,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word. And it's just like you have to flesh that out within an inch of its life, or everything else falls apart. I mean, I'm writing the sequel to Wolves of Duty at the moment, and even now, sequel stages, I'm still finding stuff like, wait, that can't be done because they didn't do that in book one, or book one didn't have
Yes.
this, so it wouldn't. What? It's so I definitely get those
Yes.
struggles. I love
Yeah.
that you said about going to do research at the beach, because one of my favorite things, I'm actually going to read some of this now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's literally just the first, hold on, where was it? Yeah, the first paragraph, I guess. Yeah, the
Okay.
first paragraph. Just because I just liked it. It's like, you just read a book and it was just like, okay, I know where I am. I know what's going on. we're here.
Yes.
So chapter 1 is from main character Samara's point of view. We've got 3 point of views: Samara,
Yes.
her twin sister Serafina, and Samara's ex-boyfriend, lover, my new man, Captain Black Panther. Oh my god. The opening paragraph is a blast of sweet and salty air filled her lungs, and Samara Davalos closed her eyes, savoring it. The deck of the pursuer rose and fell beneath her boots, defiantly tossing spray onto her olive brown skin. She gripped the sea-soaked railing, her frizzy brown hair caressing her face as the sun's rays danced on the turquoise sea. It's so simple but glorious in a really good way. Because like I use the word simple and I don't mean that bad at all. Like some people would give this whole impression of her skin, the smells, the water, the sun, by using 1,000,001 words that didn't need to be there. And you're just like, okay, what? And you've read the page twice and you know what's going on. But that was just an immediate thing. I knew Homegirl was black. I knew Homegirl was like, you know, what she looked like, where we were, and I just, you know, sun's rays. I was just like, okay, cool, let's go in. And I really do love that. I mentioned in my review that I put up today that is, for me anyway, your strongest element of the story. The descriptions are wonderful. Put me on the pursuer. Put me on the island. I'm with it. And so was it just going to the beach and doing those things, or did you do any kind of craft research in order to kind of up those descriptions? Or
I just, one thing that my editor always instilled in me was that when we're setting a scene, people always do what you see, right? But they kind of neglect what you feel and what you smell. And I know living down here, you can smell the beach before you even get there. Like you're driving down a highway with like 1,000,000 cars, but if you roll down the window, you can smell the salt. And I'm like, to me, that makes me feel good. Like I'm driving and I'm like, I know the beach is there because, you know, you can smell it. And just that sea breeze is everything. And you can there's flowers and there's greenery and there's fruit and there's, you know, sometimes if there's a storm, you can even smell a storm coming. Like you can kind of, there's a distinct smell to it. So I think for me, just something to immerse my reader in there, because I know I like to forget where I am when I'm reading a book. Like I just want to be like, I'm not here, I'm not home, I'm in this place and I'm experiencing everything without being bogged down. Because real talk, I see 2 paragraphs of nothing but description, my eyes are glazing over. I'm like, you lost me. You lost me.
No, I'm with
right.
you.
So how can I convey the scene with as little words as possible, but still set you there?
Yeah, and be impactful, which it definitely is. I mean, a big thing about you know, pirates, pirate lore, pirate books, TV, whatever. You know, there's a whole other terminology as well, which is very interesting. You know, you've got, you know, people like me who write dragons and fey warriors and, you know, all this whatever kind of stuff, but you can find pretty much the same words. You know, a dragon's a reptile, so you're going to go with claws and scales and blah, 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 blah. But now we're in a whole world of starboard and port and rigging and sails. I really appreciated all of that, because even if the words weren't necessarily familiar in terms of having used it, I knew they were right, if that made sense. So like a very simple example, I read a book somewhere where they said they called a tricorn a 3-pointed hat. And I knew they meant, but it bugged me the entire time. I was like, you couldn't have researched that a pirate hat was a tricorn. Like it just the littlest details you've just used amazingly. And I was just like, yes, she knows what she's talking about. And it's pirates and I dig it. And I really like that. Did you have to do a lot of research in that sense? Or
I did. And for me, everything stems from character, right? So like for the 3-point hat, for example, if I dropped off of a new planet and never been on a pirate ship before, and I see your hat, I may call it a 3-pointed hat, because I know nothing about pirates. And that'll tell you about that character also knows nothing about pirates. But if somebody spent any amount of time on a pirate ship like Samara did, she may not know how to navigate on a compass. She may not know how to climb up a crow's nest,
Yeah.
but she does know that a tricorn is a hat. She
Yeah.
knows that the rope is called the rigging. She will know which side of the boat that we're on.
Yeah.
You know, where it's starboard or port or the stern or the bow and all those kind of parts. But it's just enough to give you a sense of where she is, you
Where
know,
she is.
and not get too technical, because
That's
if
it. Yeah.
this doesn't serve the story, I'm not going to include all the things.
Yeah.
Now, in Secret Library, I had to do more research because one of the main characters is Captain Mari.
Yes.
She
Okay.
grew up on a ship,
No,
right? So I need to know about charts and compasses and,
Yeah.
you know,
I love
how to sail a ship through a storm. Like, when do you have to unfurl the sails or put the sails up, and how the
this
anchors work?
Yeah.
Because she's a captain. Whereas Serafina may not know all this stuff. She's literally stepping on a boat for the first time and is like, I have no idea where nothing is. So
Yeah.
it really just depends on what character I'm dealing with, how deep I'm
Yeah.
going to go in on the research. But it is
No.
important to give a
No,
sense of place.
it definitely is. And it's just, as I said, as a reader who isn't necessarily clued up on, you know, pirate terminology, as I said, it still leapt out at me that I knew that that was the right thing to say. Even if I'd never
Mhm.
used it, I respected how in depth it was. And I really do appreciate that as a reader. I think that leads on quite nicely, because I keep looking down because I'm making notes, because
Okay.
I'll just speak and then forget the thing I wanted to talk about.
No worries.
Do you know what I mean? But one thing I did want to touch on, because what I really loved about the in-depth descriptions, I did find missing in the lore part of it. So the LORE lore. So what I mean by
Yes.
that, I mentioned that in my review as well.
Mhm.
So we're going to get Macario's scepter, and there's, without doing spoilers and stuff,
Right.
there's a war that's gone on between the gods that they worship. They've gone to various isles to pick up various things, to go and get some stuff. It's a
Mhm.
real adventure. It's a real treasure hunt. But what I felt was missing was the understanding of who Macario is. And it's like, why I like, not even I feel, but why that was really important, because hello, it's the title. You know,
Right.
who is this dude? And I just felt it could have been fleshed out. And I say this now because I haven't read the others.
Yeah.
But I just felt
Right.
it could have been fleshed out a bit more, because it was so interesting. I found myself wanting to say, okay, so who are the other gods? Why are they fighting? Like, where are we from this island? How far did we get there? Where's the map? Like, it was, you know,
Yeah.
there were little things that, and I know I discussed it with you
Right.
as well. So I do
Right.
include that. But just in terms of the in-depthness, that was just the only bit that I was just like, okay, I could get more out of this. So, I mean, I know the
And
book's
that's fair.
out. Yeah, like the book's
Yeah.
out, I can't change it now. But just
Yeah.
going forward, you've built this world that is effectively massive. It could be
Mhm.
huge. And I respected
Mhm.
that, wanted it. So, you know, any plans to let us know who the other gods are, you know,
Yes,
that.
absolutely. I take the approach. I knew when I came into the series it was going to be something big and it was going to be something massive.
Mhm.
I also was very cognizant of, like, me and you bonded off of Game of Thrones. Like, we've read the books and watched the shows and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But with Game of Thrones, there was so much.
Yeah.
I felt at one time I felt
Yeah.
overwhelmed and couldn't remember anything,
Yeah.
right?
That's true.
So I think that was one of my fears with the first one, because I knew, in whole, this is going to be a 7-book series.
Oh,
So
wow.
we got a lot of room to kind of
And stuff.
take our time and flesh things out.
Mhm.
So that's what I was cognizant of.
Yeah.
Also, I thought about, like I said, character is super important to me. And in this world, Macario is the most important, and everybody else, they're not as, right?
Yeah.
You kind of have, like, every realm has its patron god, so that's who they kind of laser focus on, and
Mhm.
everybody else is kind of in the background. So when we get to Secret Library, and now we have Serafina, who is the academic, she's realizing everything she was taught is
Yeah,
not
bless her.
necessarily true.
I felt bad for her.
Yeah, there was a lot of history that's been buried, and we know there is things even in our history that's been buried, and we won't know about it till many, many, many years later, or unless we're looking for it. So Secret Library definitely delves into the lore more because we're discovering, along with Serafina, what the
Mhm.
truth really is,
Got
what
you.
the War of the Gods was really about.
Yeah.
Macario just isn't the only one. There are others, and there
Yeah.
are more.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and like you said, with first books, and this was like my first real fantasy book putting out there. It's a learning curve, and you learn stuff, and I
No,
appreciate
definitely.
that feedback because you know what to do better next time, right?
Yeah,
So
no,
you know how to
100%. I'm always
navigate stuff.
to navigate, exactly. I'm always one to
Mhm.
say, I mean, don't get me wrong, nobody wants anybody to bash their books or anything. But if somebody is coming at you with genuine, like, oh, I would have liked this or blah, blah, blah,
Yes,
it's always great to get constructive criticism. I love when I get it on my books because I don't,
yes,
just want the endless, it was perfect. Well, no, it wasn't perfect. Like,
no.
let's I know it's not perfect. Can we not do that? So no,
Yeah,
I definitely wanted to just highlight the bits that I thought, just could be a bit more. Not because they were bad, but just because I wanted to read them.
you
Do you get
wanted to read it more.
that?
Oh,
Even
absolutely.
discussing about the order and the different uniforms of the different islands when all the what they called, the authorities were arresting them and stuff like that. They were just, oh, why are they those colors? Like you mentioned, they've, the kind of the captain of the order or whatever had 3
Mhm,
stripes as opposed to 2. What do those 3
mhm.
stripes mean? If anything, that could just be a personal thing. I love that shit. So when I'm,
Okay,
why
okay.
is that? I need to know it all. And, just
Yeah.
going to different islands and, now we're going to a secret library. Hello, I'm all over.
Yeah.
It was such an epic adventure, and I just really wanted all of that with the adventure,
Se
both the
Secret Library would give
yeah,
you all of that.
all of
But
that.
the
Okay, we are
Yes.
ready. We are going in.
Yes, yes.
Um,
And Secret Library originally was supposed to be a novella because if you remember at the end, there is a chapter that kind of sets up the Secret Library,
yeah,
which came
it
in like at the 11th hour edit that I had to do. Um,
love it.
right? And I said, oh, kind of like you. I said, there's still some more left to the story before I go hop to another realm now because I
Mhm.
want people to be familiar and really spend some time before we start jumping off and meeting new characters and story
Yeah,
getting bigger and that type of deal, right? So I'm
yeah,
like, okay, I'll start this off as a short story. And then it got bigger
yeah.
and then it got bigger. And then it was like, a character I cut from Macario Scepter, I was able to bring him back in Secret Library because it was originally 4 and I
Mhm.
cut it to 3. And so he's
Okay.
moved into there. So with Secret Library, I was able to explore that
Yeah,
more and really kind of get into like what the ancient order is about and
okay.
why the order didn't want them around and what the prophecy is and what are all these chosen ones and what are we talking about?
It's
Like,
pretty much that,
what
babe.
the all the gods are. Like, it gets more into that as the setup. So when we get into book 3, which will be out by the time this airs, that's when
Yes.
like shit gets real. So I wanted
Okay.
to make sure everybody caught up
Yeah.
before we start.
No, I'm just gonna try because the thing is I read so much quicker on my phone. So, like, with a book, you just have to sit down, find a minute
Yes.
to read it. Whereas, on an
Yes.
ebook, I mean, I love my books. I'll never give them up for anybody. But when you've got an ebook and it's just on your phone, or you're just like, yep, yep,
Mhm.
swiping,
Yep.
and so I'll
Yes.
definitely get to that much quicker. But I did really enjoy as I said, the opening up. It's not just Samara accents.
Mhm.
It's not just Samara. It's just there's others, and it's just like, ooh, now we're doing like some Power Ranger type shit. And I was just like, yeah, this
Ah.
is yes. I was so here for it. But speaking on Samara, so moving quite swiftly onto
Mhm.
characters. Now, before
Okay.
going into the characters themselves, I did have a quick question. So when I was speaking to you a couple of weeks ago, whatever it was,
Mhm.
you mentioned being Afro Latina.
Yes.
Is that what you said? Yeah, it mentioned being
Yes.
Afro-Latina. And
Mhm.
without being completely ignorant,
Yes.
could you obviously explain what that means for you? Because why I'm asked and why I want people to know is because I felt like I got a lot of that from the book, both in Baz's appearance, as well
Mhm.
as Samira and Serafina's, just their curly hair and just how
Mhm.
they are. So I basically I thought I understood that you put yourself into
Yes.
them. And I just want to know if that's right. So how do you
Yes.
identify in that way?
Yes, I do. So my mother and her family, they were all born in Cuba, and we trace our ancestors back to Africa. And of course, coming back on the slave trade,
Mm-hmm.
we just didn't make the connecting boat trip to the Americas. That's basically how I kind of like describe it, right? And so growing up here, it was half what it's like to be an American, right? Where the other half, everyone, including your mom, right, was natural. My mom was naturalized at like 17, 18 years old. So that whole side of my family, some people didn't even speak English. So I had to grow up bilingual and having to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of the Spanish culture, but also holding on to our African roots and kind of like our identity.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the States, in Cuba, we still face the same kind of discrimination and racial bias and all of those things.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a blend of both. It's a blend of having that culture. So I wanted the first book to really reflect my Spanish culture, because that's what you found in my house. If you came over to my house, you heard Spanish. Like, and people look at me like, that is just so weird, because my mother was darker than me. So they're like, and the hair, this is my natural hair. Like, everybody had the fro and whatever. So they were like, that's what you heard in my house. And I grew up eating rice and beans and plantains, and and having all of that Caribbean culture in my house and in my life really influenced a lot of the book. Just the order, we were raised as Roman Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
So you had the saints and the nuns and the convents, and you had to do your communion, and you had to wear your veils and have the rosary and saying all the Hail Marys and all of that. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool to write in a book, because you don't
see it. Yeah.
See that, right? So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there and kind of pay homage to that part of my life and my culture. So I thought it was really important to kind of have that and to get something different, and still people of color. I mean, and Baz, from the islands, the Chinese people were all over the island. So I have people in my family who married someone who was from China. So some of us have very Chinese-like eyes and hair and skin, and some of us are dark, and sometimes the darkness skips. So we have people who are really like, it's just a whole melting pot of just different.
Of different people. And I think that's one thing that is so important with, recently people are throwing around the words, diverse and, inclusion and blah, 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 blah. And it's wonderful. It's happening. We're making small steps to make big leaps. I get it. But it feels like sometimes that people forget that we already had that diversity among the Black community, if that makes sense. Like, just because I don't know if you saw our Talking Black Fiction episode,
yes,
and there were 5 separate girls here, but we weren't all the same Black. And that those different variations and rainbows of Black is not new to us, it's new to you. And I do also love as well that even in growing up, I'm still learning every day, because I went to New York about maybe 5-6 years ago, and we met a guy working in Grand Central Station, and we were just asking him where to get a ticket from or whatever it was, not important. And as you mentioned, he was as dark as you, or if not darker, but was completely Latin, like as in spoke Spanish, and his name was Lorenzo or something, I don't know.
Yes.
But for us being Black Brits, that was out of this world to us. Everybody who's dark skinned is just Black, like they're not anything else. And that was so shocking to us, and I felt almost embarrassed that I hadn't been around that type of thing. And it was just it was wonderful, and I loved seeing that. And like you said, your characters are representative of that. And I'm sorry, girl, I'm gonna have to be stealing some descriptions, because Wolves of Beauty needs to understand all of this. Because going back to proximity, you live in Florida, you're at the beach, you have access to the beach and to that wonderful weather. So there's there's an ease of you being able to describe and live and breathe and write that life, whereas I'm sitting in a concrete jungle in London. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going
Yeah.
to get the same smells of palm trees as you are. I'm not going to get the same, breeze of the ocean that you are. And I love that you're able to incorporate that both in the descriptions, the food, the world, the speech,
Mhm.
and the characters, which is wonderful. I'm going to ask you about Baz because, as you just said, is he meant to be mixed? Because I don't think I got that.
He's meant to be. He has definitely the paler skin. He has the slantier eyes. He's actually inspired off of this like Asian model that I saw, and I was just like, oh my god, like
Okay, no, I did get
she's the
that.
most, yeah, she's the most beautiful thing ever.
Oh no, what's her
Yeah,
name? I have to Google it now.
yeah. I have to remember. It's on my Pinterest board. I'll send
Yeah.
it to you.
Because
He was
what
just gorgeous.
who I got in my head was Charles, is it Charles Michael Davis? The guy from the originals.
Oh,
You know?
it
Yeah,
could, and some people have said from there's this Aussie character that was in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and they
yeah.
saw him, and everybody was like DMing, "Oh my god, that's Baz," and I'm
Oh,
like,
I need to see this now. I'm gonna write this down.
yeah, because he had
Because
the hair, and he
yeah,
had the beard, and he had the,
no,
but I think,
I think I know who you mean. I think I know who you mean.
yeah, and I think it's awesome because also too, I like people to use their imaginations and to be like, this is how I see Samara, and I'm like, is it her?
Yeah,
It's her to you.
that's me.
Who am I to tell you, right? Who am I to tell you? This is
It's
your
true.
experience. If this is who you see in your head,
Yeah. And that's
go
the
for it.
you know what? That's what gets us in trouble sometimes because we get things in our head and then the movie or the TV show comes out and we're like, that's not them. And we get all upset. That's not them.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
get really pissed off. But no, I mean, however we saw him, Baz is that guy. Okay. I wrote it in. No, was it my review? No, it was a different review. Sorry, but I keep mentioning. We read Fae Warriors and we read, tanned skin and green eyes and all this kind of thing. Excuse me, but I'm sorry. There is a lot to be said for an alpha black man on a page. And sometimes I just need to be reading some chocolatey brown dudes,
Yeah.
or some caramel dudes, and I was just really invested in him, not just for the physical and the hair and the hair, but just his relationship and his connection with Samara. So
Yes.
obviously they are ex-lovers, boyfriend,
Yes.
girlfriend.
Yes.
They've broken up because I won't tell you that, but they've broken up for a bit. And
Yes.
now they're kind of fighting. So it's kind of a lovers to enemies to lovers kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're really loving it. And one thing he was wonderful with was his internal battle with her. I won't tell people what the internal battle is, but when he decides, shall we say, at the end, and he's just like, well, I'll find it. But while I find it, let me know about the Baz and Samara situation. Did you take any, inspiration from anywhere or?
Yeah, because I said at that time is interesting because at that time when I was writing that story, I was getting divorced, right? And I tell you, like the first version of Baz, he was a total a-hole. My editor was like, we can't make him a total a-hole. So I'm like, okay, let me go to therapy. I'm like, let me go to therapy and then we'll come back and we can redo him, right? He'll be better, right? So
I love it. I love it.
so it's just, especially from Samara's standpoint, I related to her so much because I understood that struggle.
Yeah.
But I think with him though, as far as portraying males, like they have to be, we want them to be that alpha male, like you said, like, but they still do have feelings and
Yeah.
they still do have those internal battles and they're just like all the rest of us trying to figure out where we fit, where do we follow, who do we follow, do we honor our parents or do we honor ourselves, and having that battle of trying to balancing those things out. And also too, I think going back to the Caribbean culture, it's honoring your family is super important and making your family happy is super important. But do you do that at the risk of not being true to yourself, or do you do that at the risk of losing yourself just to make your family happy? So I think having his POV really helped me explore that with him so he can make the decision for himself what
Yes.
he really wants to do and where he really wants to go and figure himself out.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop with Macario Scepter. I mean, he comes back in Spellkeeper.
Okay.
And now it's okay, I've made this decision, but I still have to deal with all the other consequences that I left behind in book 1. So
Yes, it's true.
how do we go from that? And where do I fit? Because now the role I had before no longer fits.
Yes, he's
So
not.
how can I?
Yeah, I see what you mean. He's not really the lead anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
how can I still bring my best self to now? Because Spellkeeper, the cast gets really big. So how do I fit myself now in this whole new realm of characters, but still bring my strengths and what I'm really good at?
Yeah. So
And
he's
feel
not just
good
like,
and confident in myself.
yeah. So
Right.
he's not just the walking, good-looking muscle, if that makes sense. Like, you want to have some depth to why you're here and why you're together. And I do appreciate that. I found the little part that I liked.
Okay.
It's chapter 15, I want to say. And obviously without context, you guys need to read it. But it literally just says, if she would have asked him to leave that life behind for her, he would have done it in an instant. Baz loved her and needed her to live the life he secretly wanted. Like, it's not anything crazily profound, but it's just lovely that he can admit that at the end. I do love her and I need her to be happy. There is no embarrassment in admitting that. I could leave the pirate life behind and I could do something else, but it wouldn't be the same without her. And it's just like,
yeah.
Yeah. And I was loving it. And it was really good.
Aww.
And then not at the end, but like, as I said, I'm trying to not do spoiler stuff, but near the end, when he basically, she says, hold on, no, he says, I've saved your life quite a lot already. She says, only because I let you. And then he says, let me do it again. Like, let me do it again. Just like, yes, it's great. And he's like, come with me, you'll be safer on the ship. And it's just like, now that he's admitted that he wants her, he just can't let her go. And I just I love it. Don't get me wrong, I love character pictures, but give me all the love, give me all the yearning, and I'm here for it.
Yes.
But really, I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, he's fun, and he gets even more fun as we kind of go along. But yeah, and there's still a lot of story that I haven't explored with him yet. Like I said, my editor's keeping me on track now. She's like, okay, we're at book 3. Like we need to stay on track now, but
we got to push forward. So, serious question, and this is for my, my smut lovers. Okay. Are we gonna get some? What can we call them? Basmera. Yeah, wait. Bamera smut. Are we gonna get some Bamera smecks? I don't know. That kind of writer or no?
I don't know. I think I grow with each book, and like in all fairness, writing their romance was super hard for me. It still is kind of like I don't know. Like when everybody's like, oh, they liked it, I'm like, oh my God, thank God. Because to me, that's like struggle. Killing people, I will kill people all day. You want an action scene, I will have stuff blow up for you for days. You want a snarky one-liner, I will give it to you all day. But then it's like, okay,
the one
romance and feelings. I'm like, oh, okay, this is gonna be, like in Secret Library, it gets really like it's that really like floofy, very cutesy kind of stuff. And like my editor was like, I need more of that. And I'm like, I'd rather you have me rewrite the book. Like, you know how hard it was to get Can I just rewrite it? It's just like, no. It's like just
in Secret Library, this is now Seraphina's journey, I guess. Yes. So how many POVs are in this one? I don't know who they are. Oh, it's still the same 3.
It's always 3.
Oh, it's always 3. It's always 3, but it's not the same 3.
Yes,
it's Seraphina and 2 others.
Yes.
Yeah, got you. So does she have the cutesy romance now?
Yes, she does.
See, and this is, and that's what I want to get to. I'm glad you said yes, because a cutesy romance with Serafina makes sense because of the nun aspect and because of her learning about herself and blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
So all with it. I
Mhm.
mean, I love a teen angst. I think it's so cute.
Mhm.
But with the sexual magnetism of Baz, and, you know, the snarky one-liners and attitude of Samara, I just feel like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying write any porn or anything,
Yeah.
but you know, their personalities are different. So I feel like their coming together would just be really explosive.
Yeah.
Explosive. And I just,
They do spend a lot of time together. So in Spellkeeper, which is the third book, right?
mhm,
They do spend that time together. And in that one, I focus more on now that they've decided to be together, because I feel like it's unrealistic to say be together. Oh, and then we're all happy.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, 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 definitely.
no, you
Still got
know, I got magic. You're not this role anymore, but you're
yeah,
still trying to act like it. And we're kind of getting on each other's nerves. And I still really hate you.
yeah,
But when it really comes down to it, how can they grow together? And I
yeah.
feel like that's like super important to, because
Mm,
everybody says, oh, they're back together and everything's great. And it's
yeah.
like, no, if you hated each other for like basically a whole book,
Yes.
you're not just going to skip off into the sunset and be like done. Like,
Yeah, especially because it's not finished, you know, like they've only just got back together. So yeah,
right,
there is going to
right.
be build up to that, and I really do respect that you're adding that realism because that's where you can, as a writer, I mean, that's where you can lose people because you know we all want the fun, we all want the kissing, woo. But
Yeah.
if you as a writer don't put in that relatability, you do kind of lose the connection, and it's just like okay, well, we've done it now, it's fine. So no,
Yeah.
I do respect that you've added that realism, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, I keep things open. I never say never to anything because, like I said, I never thought I'd be writing about pirates. I
yeah,
really never thought that a nun would be in anything that I wrote ever and should be treasure hunting and stuff. So I never say never to anything.
yeah,
We
yeah,
got plenty of room for that to happen.
all
So
of
that's for
that.
sure.
And just a quick one before I go on to the next thing. I really did
Mhm.
appreciate having Serafina as a character because she was not almost, she was just kind of a breather or a juxtaposition against the two. You know, she was sandwiched between the two characters that were a bit more lively or loud or action
Yes.
focused kind of thing. And she puts being an academic character to the forefront, which was really nice because usually you have Serafina characters as side characters. They're the ones that, you know, just
Mhm.
help along. And don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
she's helping, but she has her own uh, reasonings, her own backstory, her own growth to
Yes.
make, which was really really good. Let's who else do we have? Quick one on characters as well. I love your pirate crew, the crew of the Pursuer. You've
Yes.
got now Captain Mari,
Yes.
and oh gosh, Jules. There was
Yes.
Dirksen. We won't talk about
Yes.
him. We won't talk about Bruno. We won't talk about Bruno. Um,
Uh,
who else was there? I'm losing names. There's
we have Amrit, the
the,
carpenter.
I was about to say the carpenter, but I forgot his name.
Yeah,
But I like
yeah.
them that they all had their distinctive attitudes. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
When Samara first arrived, some of them don't like her. Some of them are like, "You're back," like whatever.
Yeah.
And I did appreciate that because it was real, especially coming from Mari. I love her attitude. You know, when one of them dies, one of them, sorry. Um,
Mhm.
you know, I love what she says about being thankful for him saving her from, you know, a life of being on her back forever. And you
Yeah.
know, it was, even though it was shrouded in a lot of fun and a lot of humor and banter, there was still
Mhm.
very real people beneath it who have come from, you know,
Mhm.
backgrounds. And I thought that was really good. Did you decide to have such a big cast at that point, or, you know, was it just, I'm just going to throw some people in?
No, I did. I did. I am such a huge Marvel fan. It's like ridiculous. Like I rewatch stuff like just cuz.
Mhm.
Um but what I loved what Marvel did with their characters is like everybody had a role. Like no character was wasted. Some had power, some didn't. Some were super smart, some were really athletic, but they all played a role in one point or another. Like somebody like as goofy as Ant-Man had the key to saving the whole world. Like I know how to beat Thanos. It's just this thingy that I have in this rusty, dusty van, right? And it's just like, I love that. So and even as a writer, if you give a character a name, there better be a reason. Otherwise, they can just be Joe Schmo up the thing, right? If you're going to give them a name, give them a reason. Whether they play a major role, like, for example, Captain Mari is now a major POV role in the Secret Library. So we get to delve into her. Or if they're just like Amrit, who may never have a POV role, but we know when something gets broke, Amrit's about to come in 3, 2, 1. There it is.
Simba, okay?
Yeah.
To fix this mask. No, we don't. Okay, go get some. I'm ready. Yeah, I respect it.
Right. He's coming right now. Okay.
No, I do appreciate that, definitely. I love how you just put it very simply. If they've got a name, they need a reason, because I've read a few books, trad and indie, where it's just, as if I give everybody a name, everybody what they're wearing, it makes me somehow a better writer or like a bigger writer. When you're writing fantasy, everybody wants to be Tolkien, everybody wants to be George Martin, everybody wants to be Brandon Sanderson, and it's like, that's not necessarily your lane. Like, you can do the same work and not be these epic tome writing guys. And it's just, I do appreciate that. If someone's there, it needs to matter why I've taken in this information.
Exactly. Even if it's something like a smuggler, which was in the third book, and I remember it was Dead Man Bird because it was hilarious to me. But if I say Dead Man Bird in this one, I might need a smuggler in like book 5. And I can be like, that dude. And they're like, oh yeah, that's the dude that was in, the third book or whatever. And, he was an a-hole for whatever reason, but he's there. Definitely. So if I'm going to give somebody, a name, it has to, whether that purpose is just for that story, or I might be saving them if I need it, later on down the line for like book 6 and 7 and things like that. So yeah, I did want to have a big cast, because I love big casts of characters, but I wanted everybody to get to know them first before I start throwing new ones in. Like Spellkeeper has 2 new ones. So now we went from like Secret Library has one new one, but by now we're like 6 major characters together, which is a whole nother like hot mess. It was a hot mess. But by then you're familiar with the original 3 and then the original 4, and you understand. So even if they don't have a POV chapter, okay, if we are having a planning scene, Baz is there all day. Like, we need a plan. Baz in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Right here. Right?
He's the plan.
If something is blowing up and it's like, and Samara's gonna run off in 3, 2, 1, no listen to nobody and do something impulsive, right? Who is that kneeling over there praying? That's Serafina over there praying. Like,
everybody's got their roles. Everybody's got their roles to play, and I really do appreciate that, because one thing I got in my own book, in terms of feedback, people did mention, it felt info dumpy, or there was just stuff that didn't necessarily make sense at the time. And it wasn't until the end of the book, once it was closed up, it was like, oh, I see where you were going with that kind of thing. So that is definitely something I need to work on in terms of making it feel necessary. But then in the same breath, do you ever feel like, I can't really give you all my eggs at one go? Like, I can't tell you the clues are clues. That's why they're clues.
And I think that's where pre-planning helps you out the most. Like I said, before I wrote Macario Scepter, all of my realms were built out. I knew who all my chosen ones were, and I knew what their powers were going to be, right? Nice. So if you're in Macario Scepter and she's like, and you may not have caught it, but maybe when you read book 3 and you'd be like, oh, wait a minute. Like, when there's a part where she's in a cavern and she finds the scepter, there are 2 paintings of 2 different gods.
Yes.
And I know in my brain, when I'm mentioning those paintings, they're going to be in book 2 and 3.
Yeah, there you go.
Or if they found some kind of something, I won't spoil it for Secret Library, but Mari finds some kind of something, right? And she's like, what the hell is this? Like, what the hell is this doing here? And how did I know that they were going to be there in order for me to tell, that I was going to be there? And then it's like, okay, but you know that she has them.
Yeah.
Then you get to Spellkeeper, and it's way at the end, and it's the whole setup for what her major role is going to be and everything. And you're like, oh, I get, because even my editor was like, oh, I liked how you did that thing, because I remember in 2 books, planning is your friend. Like you have to like, you have to know where you're going so you can plan all these things. Or in Spellkeeper, there's an even nerdier character, which everybody seems to love at this point. He's the book nerd.
Yes,
he's like, what is that thing? Oh, I read in a book once, and everybody's like, okay, shut up now. You're talking way too much. Yeah. So he'll read in the book, like, oh, there's this crown of time. Well, that's weird. That's a funky looking crown. And then goes off about his day. And I know that's the next major piece. But he, the character, don't know that. Samara and Serafina may. Yeah. But he, the character, don't know that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have him find it. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then my editor was like, oh my God, isn't that like books like 6? And I'm like, yeah, that's book 6. So
that's it. No, I do respect that so much, because it just shows how much of a craft and a world that you're weaving, basically, because this stuff doesn't just come out. You do have to think about it in order for it to mesh together properly. So I really do appreciate the thought that has gone into that. I mean, that once again meshes quite nicely while we wrap up in terms of your book plans. So you have mentioned it will be 7 books. So do you have titles, a time frame? Let us know your plans for that, and then we'll this section.
So I do have titles, because I keep my titles simple. I feel like don't overcomplicate things. Either have it be a place or have it be a thing. Right. So Spellkeeper is the 3rd book, and by the time this airs, it will be out, and that's where we meet the second chosen. April 19th.
19th. Oh, tomorrow. Yay!
Tomorrow. Yeah, we're filming this is tomorrow.
Yeah.
So Spellkeeper is where we meet the next chosen one. There are 4 altogether. So that's like her book and her magical object. The one after that is the Enchanted Cape.
Nice.
Which I don't know if you remember Macario Scepter. I think she maybe kind of mentions where Mari was, like where she was from before. Yeah. That's the place they have to go back to.
Go back to there.
They have to go back to there. So that's book 4. Book 5 is tentatively titled Winter Tide. So that's where our 3rd magic chosen one is. And
that's tundra place.
It's a tundra place. Exactly. Okay. It's very Arctic, cut off from the world. It's totally cursed, and they know it. And I get
they know it.
Like normally people don't know their place is cursed. No, these people actually know it. It's like that's where they have to go.
They're going on purpose.
Exactly. And then the last 2 introduces the last chosen one, and then kind of like the big battle. So as we go along through the books, we get hints as to who this big bad person is, who has this evil Dark Lord's magic, what exactly are his plans. All the monsters fit together, all the villains fit together, and kind of this grand master plan. So each book kinds of leaks out a little bit more, ramps up things a little bit more, until we get to like what I call like the infinity / end game of the whole series. And by then we know who everybody is. We can have, 10 or 12 characters, because I want to spend time in making sure we were familiar with them, what their roles were. And again, I had to plan that all like last year. I mean, I got with my editor, and she was like, we have to plan this out now. And I'm like, do we have to? She's like, no, we have to. Like, it's real now. It's like we can't go off the rails now, because we set everything up kind of like in the first 3 books.
No, I appreciate that. So when would your end game book be? So we're in 2022 now. When do you expect to finish all of them? I mean,
it's going to be a minute. It's going to be a minute, because I say that because Spellkeeper alone took me, and I'm pushing it, like a solid year for the draft.
Okay.
Because as a writer, ensemble casts are hard. They make it look so easy, but they are so hard. It's like, how can you have 3 POV characters? You have all the secondary characters, and you can't lose nobody. Like you can't lose track of folks, right? Like, so
it was so and so the whole time. Yeah, got you.
Right. It's kind of like Secret Library with its own little side quest, and it was this whole book. But like Spellkeeper had to have like 3 of those side quests like at the same time.
Right. Yeah. No, that's
It
like a
just
post I made the other day about managing time, as in,
yes.
how do you keep track of, okay, it was the next day, and then it was 5 days later, and then the boat crashed, and then, okay, and how long did that take? 2 days? A
Yeah.
week? Where are we? Like, you know, it
Yeah.
symbols.
I establish an endpoint. It's like I'll say in the beginning, okay, we have 6 days to
Mhm.
get to meet back at such spot,
Yes, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I know that it's a 6-day time span. So
good,
sometimes we might do the whole 6 days, or
yeah.
we might skip a couple of
Okay.
days.
Skip a couple,
But it's just
I dig
like
it.
3 days later, we're still on this flipping horse and I'm
Yeah,
tired and I'm
yeah,
hungry and whatever, whatever, right? But yeah, but just managing all of that, and as the world gets bigger and the distances get longer and yeah, it gets pretty hard to manage, but ensemble casts are hard. So it's gonna take a minute because I want to make sure that my plotting is on point, my outlining is on point.
mhm.
I'm not forgetting things that I started in like the first 3 books, because as a reader, I hate that. It's like, wait a minute, what happened to the,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you introduced something else and it kind of just fell off. So,
A bit
but
like,
I do like, yeah. So I want to take my time as much as I want to like push a book out. And I'm a fast drafter. Once
okay,
the outline is done, I'm
good.
ready, set, go.
Yeah.
But that outline will take like 6 months.
You know what? It's all the better for it. It is all the better for it, and it definitely helps flesh out what I honestly feel like is going to be an epic undertaking. I'm
Mhm,
such a planner. I'm 100% a type A person, you know,
mhm,
recent pregnancy not included, but I am such a type A, and I love the organization and research and, all of that putting together. So I appreciate the work that's gone into it, and I cannot wait to get, to that end stage with you kind of thing. As I said, I've got Secret Library on my phone. Tomorrow
awesome.
is Spellkeeper coming out, so I'll definitely get that
Yes.
one as well. Guys, make sure you get your copies because it is genuinely such a fun ride. As I said, pirate adventure with Black people. We're living our best lives.
Exactly.
Margaret, before we wrap up, just let everybody know where they can find you and the books, and just get involved about what you're about and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram at MJ_McGriff. And on my Instagram profile, I have a link to a free short story, which is called The Griffin. Um, and The Griffin, you would definitely want to read because there is a tie-in to The Spellkeeper that comes out tomorrow. So it's kind of like, yeah, that was a very like fun like Easter egg. So you can grab that free short story and then you'll be on my email list. And when you're on my email list, you can get the first 3 chapters of Macario Scepter. So see if that's for you,
Yeah.
as well as keep up to date with all of my my writer updates of all my books. My books are available pretty much everywhere. So Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Kobo, libraries,
Oh, love
just
it.
any place, anywhere that, yeah,
You are
any and
on
every place you can get a book.
any place you can get a book. She's
Any
on
place you can get a book, pretty much. Yeah,
she's on job with
yeah.
that one. But no, thank you so much, Margaret, for joining me today. It has been an absolute pleasure. Um,
Thank you.
as she said, you know where to find her now. To get involved with this amazing, amazing series. As it says on the screen, all links and usernames will be available in the description. So
Mhm.
yeah, just show all the love. It is a fabulous thing. Thank
Thank
you
you.
once again for joining me. This to the listeners, sorry, you guys. We'll be back again in 2 weeks with another episode. I'm not sure what that will be, but thank you if you stick around till just then. So have a good one, people. See you later. Bye.
Bye.